Welcome back to Lord of the Rings Rise to War. Today we're going to get right into this and we're going to start doing a video on Gimli. So Gimli is a warrior. He's a fantastic commander. When I did a rank list, he was pretty high on my list, and the only reason why he wasn't higher on my list was because I already had access to the tier 3 dwarven commanders, who are a little bit better, if not better overall, than him. So this video is more dedicated towards the players that don't have the tier 3 commanders unlocked, and they're interested in, like, okay, I have Gimli, or they don't spend a lot of money, or you're just starting the game and you're just got into Gimli, and is he a solid pick? Is he a commander that you should put points into? And I would say, yeah, if you don't have access to Legolas and you don't have access to any of the other 2 tier 3 commanders of the dwarven commanders, he is the best choice. If you have access to Legolas and access to Dane Ironfoot and or Thorin, I would say no. I would say keep working on those guys, because they're going to start outperforming Gimli even if he was ranked 10. So for the players who are sticking around, and want to know if Gimli's good, he is good. He still does good on the battlefield, and he does good versus good faction, and he does good versus evil faction. But he doesn't do that S tier greatness towards either faction. But he will be a solid commander for you. So let's get right into it. So he is a warrior. Fantastic. 10%, 25 might, 2 skills. I love it. It's good for a warrior, for a damage warrior. His equipment, you're going to run anything purple with might and army damage melee resistance is what the type of equipment. His might level with decent equipment at max level is going to be around 340 to 390. If you have gold equipment, maybe you could push him above the 400 mark, but you're stuck between 350 and 400. If you have gold equipment, you could maybe get him over the 400 mark, but he's right around 350 to 400 might. His focus, not very good. It's not going to do a whole lot, maybe 5% army damage reduction. And then he has no skills that are modified. Oh, he does have a skill that's modified by his focus stat, but that's in his second build. So there's 2 builds for him. And then his speed. His speed is, I like his speed. I really think his speed needs a little bit more. I would recommend trying to get something with the commander and army initiative to try to allow him to hit first. But overall, you're going to be tanking hits before you deal damage with his type of speed. So let's get into his skills. So there's 2 type of builds. Okay, I'm not going to go over all of his skills and stuff like individually, because it takes a long time to do that, and overall you're just looking for the best build, right? So what you need to know is there's 2 builds with him. You got one build that is where he's doing the damage, and you got the second build where him and his army is doing the damage. So you kind of got a balance build, and then you kind of got a commander damage build. So the commander damage build is going to consist of the legendary tier 3 skill tree. You're going to use Durin's Blood for a 35% skill damage increase. You're going to use Whirlwind. You're going to use Experienced Warrior, which is going to give your commander a 60% damage increase for his normal attacks, and then anytime he hits a melee unit, it's going to do additional 10% damage and 10 more damage to melee units. And then you're going to have access to his all-in skill, which I love. All-in, I've seen on him, it's not going to be as effective as the other commanders, but it's fun hitting an enemy for 40, 50k. And basically this skill by itself, if everything's going well, could net you, for 7 points, net you your own commander 100,000 damage, 80 to 100,000 damage, depending on your army HP by the time he uses those skills. The second skill you're going to use is collaboration. You're going to use this because it gives, so whereas after he does his normal attack on round 1 and hits for his normal attack, right after he's going to do another normal attack, but it's going to do 25% more damage. But that's a skill, which is buffed by Durin's Blood, which is plus 35% more. So it's doing 160% damage. So it's basically another attack, right? 35, 65, 35, 45, 65, 35, 45, 55, and then 45%. Yeah, 6%. So he's going to be doing 60% more damage. So his two skills together are going to be basically doing 2 normal attacks each round for 160% damage. Which is nice. It's basically you're getting 2 normal attacks, and if you put together 60%, you're getting 3 normal attacks. But it's nice. It's kind of like a swing ability, but all the time, which is nice. And then you're gonna have access to. Then you're gonna dump your remaining points after you put into those. You're gonna dump. Actually, no. You're gonna put points into his Hunt Down ability. You're gonna max out Hunt Down. It's really useful after the commander attacks against that target that it hit. After the commander attacks against enemy targets. When it hits after the commander attacks against the enemy target, damage dealt is affected by your might stat. So, the command. I don't know if the commander gets the buff, but your army will do more damage against those units modified by commander's might stats, like Lord of the Glittering Caves, but for 7 points, but it's limited. And I do like it. It's solid. It helps your army do a little bit more damage. And if it does affect your commander as well, say if you hit a normal attack, right, and then your collaboration comes in and it's modified by that, it's useful. But I think that only buffs the army. And then you're going to dump the rest of your points into Lockbearer and put 1 point into Protect Elves. And that's it. That's all you're going to do. You won't be able to max out Lockbearer, so it's not going to be his focus stat isn't going to be important, but it does help your army recover about 10%, 30% chance of recovering a little HP. It's useful. It helps. Okay. Now, for his army balanced type of stuff, where he's doing a little bit of damage and his army's doing damage. So, how you do that is you don't touch the top skill tree. This skill tree is a nada. What you do is you dump all your points into Lord of the Glittering Caves. Now, one of the disappointing things about Lord of the Glittering Caves is that I'm pretty sure it doesn't affect your commander. I remember checking the post-battle results and seeing it's against enemy melee units, they take 25% more damage, but it only grants that to your army that you take with you. So I really just don't like that. I don't. It doesn't show Gimli doing it. It just shows your army doing it to granting the extra damage buff to those enemies, and I really to the melee enemies that are melee, and I really just don't like that. I wish it gave Gimli the buff. It doesn't. So this is why it's more of an army build. You max out Lord of Glittering Caves. You put a single point into Heavily Wounded, and then you max out Break Defense, and then you max out Durin's Blood, 35%, and then you max out Whirlwind, and then you max out Lockbearer, and now you're going to be low on points, but you put 1 point into Protect Elves, a single point, and then you could dump the rest of your points into whatever you want. You could dump the rest of your points into Friendly Relations for reduced damage. You could put your few extra points, if you have few extra points, into Experienced Warrior, which will increase your commander's normal attack. You could just dump points into whatever you feel like is good to you. That you feel personally is best. Personally, I think Experienced Warrior, dumping extra points in Experienced Warrior is useful. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, now we got the 2 commander builds that you use for him. It depends on which one you like. I personally prefer his balanced. He is a warrior, and this balanced, the second one that I showed you, still allows him to do consistent damage, but it's also allowing his army to do consistent damage, and that's my preferred one with him. Because it capitalizes on just destroying the frontline melee units. So, what kind of units are you going to use with him? So we're going to go right over into the units you're going to be using. So if you do use the commander damage build, and obviously if you use the commander damage build, the units that you are going to use are, you're going to use Sentinels with Rise Up. Rise Up's right here. You got him rank 2. You're going to use 50 of them. That's it. Just 50. Max out Rise Up, that's a 15% damage bonus for your army and as well as for your commander. And then the next point you're going to put into is Guardians with Heavy Shield. When you get Heavy Shield going, you're going to have a 20% damage resistance, and since your commander is going to be doing the majority of the damage, you don't have to worry about these units doing that much damage. So they just take 20% less damage, which is useful. And then the next skill you're going to be putting your points into is Cavaliers. And you're going to do, yet again, Rise Up. You're just going to use 50 of them, a single command, and you're going to get granted another 15%. So now your Guardians are going to be doing 30% minus the 20, so only 10%, but your commander is going to be getting a 30% damage increase for your commander. Now, if you do go with the build that I would recommend, that I always recommend for Gimli, if I was playing him, is I would run Sentinels with Rise Up. I'd run about 2,000 of them. This is at max level, right? Level 50, so you have all your command points unlocked. I'd run about 30% Sentinels for the damage, for the extra army damage. Maybe might even run 40%. Yeah, 40% of your command is going to be going towards your Sentinels. This is for the balanced skill tree, the one that I recommend. And you gain 15% damage. Your commander will gain 15% damage, and your army will gain 15% damage. For having three different races. The second unit you're going to have is obviously Guardians, and with Heavy Shield. And then when you have Protect Elves, any normal attacks that are targeted towards your Elven units these guys are going to take it for you, or the majority of it for you, and they take 20% less damage. And this is where Lockbearer, you want to hope to God Lockbearer locked onto them, because it only selects 2 targets. Lockbearer only selects 2 targets out of your army, and it's very frustrating when that happens, because you might get a game where Lockbearer won't affect your units, and it might go to your archers instead of your Guardians. So it's a little annoying, but most of the time it usually lines up, and it's not terrible. So take 20%, and then the second unit you're going to use, you would think I would recommend Cavaliers. Just throw in 50 of them, and then you have your army comprised of 50% Guardians and 49% Sentinels, and then like the 1%, which is the one command of these guys, right? Just for that 15% damage increase. No, you don't use these guys. What I would recommend is trying to get a hold of a secondary human, a neutral unit, basically. So when we go down to these neutral units, I'd recommend trying to get a hold of some Ints and or some Eagles, because these guys count as a second race. And the reason why I recommend Ints is trying to get a hold of Ints. If you can't get a hold of Ints, Cavaliers obviously would do just fine, right? But if you can't get a hold of Ints, Ints are very useful. They have high damage, high HP. They do about, if you have them maxed out, they have like 5,400 HP per command, which is very useful. That gives you a lot of HP. They have a high damage resistance, 15% physical damage negation with gaining Guardian, so they protect your units early on, which is very useful. And you have them have access to just their first one, which is Natural Power, which is just another 20% damage reduction. Granted, you have to be on non-structural land, like you can't attack someone on a fort, you can't attack someone in their capital, on their turf, you can't attack stuff like that. But if you're just standing in a tree tile, a 200 tree tile, and you get attacked, this is perfect for you. And it's another 20% on top of their damage resistance, and they help protect your army. Or if you can't get access to them, try to get access to the Eagles. They're very useful. They take 30% less damage from melee units, and since this is a very heavy melee meta, Eagles are very useful because it's 30%, and plus they take another 20%, so that's a 50. If the army is comprised, if you're fighting a Khaldun and he just has a crap ton of melee units on the front line, right? Well, guess what? You have now a 50% damage reduction against those frontline melee units, plus you're dealing additional damage with his Lord of the Glittering Caves, another 25% damage with Lord of the Glittering Caves. Most people might consider Pierce, but I don't recommend Pierce. Just go for the damage resistance, and then go for the 10% HP on them. If you can't get access to elite units at all, I mean, Guardians of the Deaths are, Death Guardians of the Death Defenders are always good, no matter what you're using. But if you can't, you just always go with Cavaliers and just get the 15% and just buff your army by 15%. Instead of buffing your army's damage resistance by 20%. You see the trade off. It doesn't matter, but that's usually what you should try to go for. So is he someone that you should be working for? Like I said at the start of the video, I think he's a solid commander. But if you already had, like I said, if you have access to Legolas, which is a little bit better than Gimli, I would say he performs about 10, maybe 20% better than Gimli. If you have any of the other 2 tier 3 commanders, I just would recommend not touching Gimli unless you're a low spender and you unlock Gimli and you want to use him because you like him from the movies and he's your favorite character. He's good. He's definitely A, B tier. He's not S tier. He's not A tier. But he's definitely B tier on my list. He does good damage. He will do good for you. And yeah, that's my tier list. This is Zane's Mobile. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys would like, leave a sub, leave a subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you.